Coming up tonight on Business Live, decline in 2023 end of year inflation does not mean we are out of the woods yet. Associate Professor of Finance Williams prepare cautions.
But it does not mean that things are okay in Ghana, but just that the rate of growth in prices, goods and services has really reduced significantly.
President Akufo-Addo signs 5 new tax amendment bills into law, giving Ghana Revenue Authority legal backing to start collections.
Our aim is not to make the life of the taxpayer more complex, but to make it easier. And so, if it's a new thing, we want to take our time to explain it to people and do the engagement. We'll send people to the FM stations to be able to talk to them. We'll set up desk where people can come and we explain.
Plus, on the Joy Business Van today, we feature in Nobwa a web-based platform created by start-upper Portia Alanyo to provide skilled labor for the agri sector. We have details of these and many others coming your way all in a moment. Please stay. Thanks so much for your company. I am Pius Kojo Baka. To our very first story, inflation for December 2023 has dropped to 23.2% from the 26.4% recorded in November in the same period. By this, government ended the year with an inflation figure below its revised target of 31.3% captured in the 2024 budget presentation to Parliament in November last year. Announcing the figures, government statistician Professor Kwabena Williams said food inflation continues to drive inflation rate, a rate of 28.7%, while non-food inflation saw inflation of 18.7%. Here's more. According to figures from the Ghana Statistical Service, food inflation drove down the overall inflation with a rate of 28.7% in December 2023, compared with 32.2% in November 2023. The non-food inflation also went down to 18.7% in December 2023 from 21.7% in November 2023. Inflation for locally produced items stood at 23.8% in December 2023, whilst inflation for imported items was 21.9%. Professor Kwabena Williams is the government statistician.
For the month of December 2023, rate of inflation on a year-on-year basis stood at 23.2%. relative to 26.4% that was recorded in the month of November 2023, signifying a 3.2 percentage point difference between the rate of inflation that was recorded for the month of November 2023 relative to December 2023. From a food and non-food perspective, we see a variation of 10.0 percentage points between food and non-food inflation, as food inflation for the month of December 2023 stood at 28.7% relative to 18.7% for non-food inflation for the month of December 2023.
6 divisions recorded inflation rates higher than the national average. They are alcoholic beverages, tobacco and narcotics with 38.2%, personal care, social protection and miscellaneous goods and services with a rate of 31.1%. Food and non-alcoholic beverages recorded 28.7%. Restaurants and accommodation services with a rate of 28%. Furnishing, household equipment and routine household maintenance recorded 26.9%, and recreation, sports and culture witnessing 24.9%. Meanwhile, Eastern region recorded the highest rate of inflation, followed by the Western and Western North regions with a rates of 34.3% and 33.7% respectively. And on the back of that, Associate Professor of Finance at Andrews University in the USA, Williams welcomes the decline in inflation and says this would positively impact the prices of goods. However, he says this does not mean the economy has recovered.
Understand the basic definition of inflation, which measures how more expensive a set of goods or services has become over a certain period, usually a year. So the December figure gives us that perspective, 23.2%. So the rate of increase, comparing last year, that is 2022 and 2023, we've seen the rate of increase has declined to the 23.2%. This is a positive, or let me put it, a favorable news. It means that prices are moving up, but they are not moving up drastically as they were in 2022. So this December figure, as I've mentioned, is a favorable figure, especially if you compare that one to what the budget anticipated that would be the figure of 31.3. In effect, it does not mean that things are okay in Ghana, but just that the rate of growth in prices, goods and services, has really reduced significantly from December 2022 to December 2023.
And we'd like to bring in the perspectives of industry players on that. And joining us via Zoom is the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mark Bedu Abuaje, for more. Mark, thanks so much for joining me on Business Live, and good to see you and a Happy New Year to you. First off, inflation ended the year 2023 at 23.2%, lower than the targeted figure of 31.3% by government. First off, again, what's your assessment after this figure, basically going down for 5 consecutive times?
I think it's a good news. Inflation is not good for any economy. At least there should be some level of inflation. That is why we've been targeting a single digit of 8% plus or minus 2. When it goes way above what we experienced in 2022 and the early part of 2023, then it affects both consumers and producers. So a high level of inflation affects basically every aspect of the economy, and we have all experienced that prices are going up. The purchasing power of individuals have also gone down, and it's also affecting businesses. Profitability has gone down. People are not buying the goods because of the high prices. So to see inflation coming down for me is good news. If you look at where we were at the beginning of the year of 53.6. Now 23.2. We have reduced inflation significantly by 30.4%, which for me is very good, because as inflation goes up, it feeds into the cost of the production through the producer price index, and people will expect that prices will go down. But once inflation is up, prices will not necessarily go down, just that the rate at which prices are increasing will be slowed down. So if you are able to sustain it and get inflation to our target of single digit, then obviously all of us are going to have a relief, both as consumers, producers, and as a nation as well.
So, talking about sustenance, do you think that the trend could continue in the first quarter of this year?
Yeah, I'm very hopeful that the downward trend will continue, but the rate at which it is reducing will now also slow down. If you look at the rate at which it reduced from October to November, I think it's about close to 8%, and now it's just a small margin. It means that all the factors that are affecting inflation are now stabilizing. So even though we may experience a reduction, the rate at which it is reducing will slow down. It wouldn't be as huge as from what we experienced from the beginning of the year, where we had this significant reduction in inflation. But for me, anytime inflation is going down from where we were, it's good news for everybody.
Great, good news you said. So do you expect the Bank of Ghana to start easing the policy rate to help impact interest rates?
Obviously, I don't see any reason why the central bank should keep the policy rate at 30%. One of them, the main reason they gave for increasing the policy rate was to tame inflation and bring inflation down. So consistently, they've been telling us that consistently they've been increasing inflation. Even when at the point where inflation was trending downwards, they were still increasing the policy rate. Now we've gotten to a level where from the beginning of the year to now, we've seen a 30.4 reduction in inflation. So there is no justification for a central bank to keep the policy rate at 30%. Recent data indicate that our interest rate is the highest in the whole Africa. Just interest rate are the other cost of production, and you know how the difficulty is. So it is time that they step back. We appreciate that to some extent they've been able to use the policy rate to tame inflation. Now inflation is down 23.2. There's no need for the central bank to keep the policy rate at 30%. They should reduce the policy rate in the next sitting of the MPC. And also, I know the banks will also respond positively. Once the policy rate comes down, the banks will also respond and reduce their interest rate. If you keep policy rate at 30%, what you are saying is that the normal interest rate should be around 37 to 40%. And it's so high for an economy that would want to develop the private sector. No business can borrow at this rate and expect that they will make profit and expand and engage people. So as our talents, we are experiencing some level of improvement in the economy. So they should also respond as well and ensure that they bring down the policy. We can't, this record of being the country with the highest interest rate, it's not a good record for any country. A country that wants to develop the private sector, a country that wants to develop the businesses, a country that wants to export, and you are keeping your policy rate at 30% and interest rate close to 40%. It's not good. So they should listen to us, and we know they have done their bit. Now it's time for them to respond to the downward trend in inflation.
Well, the argument from the other side is that, well, Ghana is not out of the woods yet. So in as much as you are saying some reduction by way of inflation does not mean that, of course, we should reduce the policy rate. That's been the argument.
No, I totally agree that we are not out of the woods yet. But for us to be out of the woods also means that you need a lower interest rate to stimulate the private sector. You can't, put the interest rate that high and expect that you'll be out of the wood. Production should also go up. So once the inflation is coming down, every country there's some level of inflation. For us, we have agreed our optimal level of inflation is 8% plus or where we see a single digit. So look at where we are now and where we were in the beginning of the year. There's been a significant drop. If that is the reason why the policy rate was going up, now there is a relief for you to reduce it gradually. We are not saying they should reduce it by 10%, and that will, of course, will trigger inflation again. So gradually they should now begin to reduce it, bring some relief to businesses. Businesses will not have to borrow. Now, in fact, the reason why the non-performing loan and other things are going up is because inflation is high. In fact, when you have high inflation, it doesn't mean the banks will make profit. It means that they're rather going to make a lot of loss because people who borrow will not be able to pay for the money. So we are aware that we are not out of the, but one of the things that you have to do to get us out of the woods is to stimulate private sector activity. And that will require that we reduce the policy rate and induce interest rate so that people will be business will be able to borrow and then invest and expand.
All right.
They should. And for me, there's a time for them to do it. There is no justification for them to keep it at this level.
All right. Thank you very much, Mark Bedu-Abuaji, for your time here on Business Live. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. It's one of our headline stories, and President Akufo-Addo has finally signed the 5 tax amendment bills into law. Joy Business understands that the President has signed these bills into law on December 29, 2023. The 5 amendment bills include the Income Tax Amendment Tax, Excise Duty Amendment Act, and VAT Amendment Act 2023. Meanwhile, Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Reverend Dr. Amisha Dai Owusu-Amoah, had earlier explained to Joy Business that the implementation of the taxes will be guided by the completion of the necessary public education.
The bill is approved by Parliament. Normally, in the approval process, there could be some amendments, some changes here and there. And so, even though our team have already started trying to put together the parties' notes and the processes, we cannot come out with it until the final bill is given to us. Then you will notice whether there are some changes. Once you notice that, you have to now go back and then finish it. So it's the interval between the time of approval and then there may be another week or 2 or whatever it takes for us to also finalize the necessary documentation around it. So the aim is to start from 1st January. But the practical, what do you call it? The practicability, that's the word. Yes, is what actually finally determines. So once we get it, then we'll look at what we need to do, and then we will be able to say that, okay, effective 15th of so and so or so and so it will start.
I know, Commissioner, you with the tax unit at the Ministry of Finance, often you influence some of these things. There are still, and I stand to be educated about the application of the VAT input and the item that it should attach and the calculation and all those things. Is the Commission worried about that? Now that some of these amendments will mean that items that were not, for instance, look at insurance, non-life insurance products and all the rest, and these things kicking in. Is the Commission aware, or is the Commission worried that these businesses that are supposed to sometimes enforce these things are still struggling on how it should be applied on these items.
No, you need to clarify it because you see, whatever we do, like I told you from the beginning, our aim is not to make the life of the taxpayer more complex, but to make it easier.
Let's explore this angle further. Let's go on Zoom and engage tax analyst Francis Timoboy on this issue. Thanks so much, Francis, for joining me on Business Live. Do you think that the tax system is ready to incorporate the numerous taxes expected to have taken off from January 1, 2024, including the VAT on electricity supply above the lifeline for residential consumers?
For having me, and I don't know whether you can hear me.
I can.
First of all, the argument that the tax system is choked or there are too many taxes can be judged from, let me mention three main items. When taxes are introduced and the taxes put together reduces economic activity, then we listen to public sentiment. If public sentiment is such that they believe that the taxes are too many, then you can say we have too many taxes in the system and therefore it is not helping businesses. Again, if the taxes, we say that there is a problem with the tax system. Recently, KPMG and the United Nations Development Unit did some research, and the business community are saying that the taxes are too many, and therefore they were expecting some reduction in the ones that were passed, especially the 2023 budget. So yes, we all agree that the number of taxes that we have now appears to be too many, and especially when the businessmen are saying that it's using their operations, then I think it calls for concern that all of us have to sit down and see how do we make the tax system more friendly and business focused so that it will enhance economic growth.
And Mr. Timoboy, do you hold the view that with the recent assenting of the bill by President Akufo-Addo, the law can take retrospective effect? Do you think so?
No, I don't think the Constitution doesn't even allow for that, because the Constitution frowns on, I think Article 107 says that Parliament does not have the power to pass a law that takes retrospective effect, with the exception of laws like the appropriation bills and then laws that deals with loans that government of Ghana will be taking. Other than that, we don't expect them to take retrospective effect. What I see the GRA doing is that some of those implementation that has not been done before, that is what we are seeing now. So some of them are not really new laws. Some of them, for example, the VAT on the electricity, since 1998, we've had the lifeline consumers being exempted. If you consume above the lifeline, that is where you pay VAT on it. So currently we pay VAT on those ones. But I think the implementation is what went, on the low line. Now they want to fully implement some of those things. But otherwise, some of them are not new. And the Constitution does not allow the Parliament to pass a law that would take retrospective effect.
Not too long ago, we played the sound of the Commissioner General of the GRA indicating that even though the law states that the VAT will be implemented, there must be some configurations done with the GRA systems. Now, for businesses that may be affected by the new taxes, example, the motor insurance, etc., how are they expected to apply the taxes, you would say?
And I'm glad that the Commissioner General himself has said it, perfectly put. We have observed some trend in the recent tax laws that are being passed. Normally, when a tax law is passed, either Parliament will tell us the effective date. Of late, we are not told, so we go by the date of Gazette or maybe when the President signs it. And if you've taken a close look at it, the President signs it on 31st December, and it's expected to take effect on 1st January when everybody is on holiday. So if you're a business person, you find it's really, really difficult to comply. And so what the GRA has been doing to step in is to come out with a publication that these taxes are going to, start on this date. And so since the Commissioner General has said it, today is on the 9th of January. We've not seen any publication yet. we will kindly call on the GRA as a matter of urgency to tell the public so that businesses will be able to comply.
Today is actually on the 10th, Francis Timoboy. All right, so thank you so much for joining me on Business Live, and we are indeed grateful for your time. Thanks for watching Business Live. I am Pius Kojo Baka. Bye.